Bill's gonna be there, Anne Marie's gonna be there. And, good morning, today's Thursday, September 3rd, 2020, and we are here for a work session. As always, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Tim, can you please take the lead?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tim. This is hard enough today. Okay, I just have one announcement today. Tonight on Main Street is the final Dine on 25 from 5:30 to 9:30 p.m. I encourage everyone to come downtown and enjoy a meal with your family and your friends. Moving forward on discussion items, the first discussion is Alexander Barrow, proposed Cavalton Airport bicycle race. Alexander, you with us? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Great, welcome.
First of all, thank you very much for the time you've given me to make my proposal. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to give you just a little background on who I am and what I'm hoping to do, and I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you guys might have. Again, my name is Alexander Barrow. I live in Riverhead, up by the Reeves Park area, and I've been living with my wife and 14-month-old at our house up here for about 3 years. I'm originally from Long Beach, and I'm a passionate bike racer. I've lived in Brooklyn prior to this for about 10 years, and during that period of time, I was able to discover the exciting, wonderful sport of bike racing, and it's become a passion of mine that's also turned into a career for me. I've worked in bike shops, I've produced bicycle races around the world in Brooklyn and in Barcelona and in Milan. And for the past 5 years, I've worked for a small company, a company that produces bike care products that are based out of Hauppauge. The company's called Finish Line. And my job there is to be their salesman for our domestic business. And over the past year, I've been riding around Suffolk County, and I discovered the Calverton Airfield. And I found it to be a perfect location for an event and a sport that Suffolk County seems to lack at this point. And that would be a bike race. There is a consistently run bike race at Floyd Bennett Field, which is another abandoned airfield in Brooklyn. It's in South Brooklyn, which has been going on for about 25 years. And I thought it would be a perfect location and a perfect venue to introduce a grassroots recreational competitive bike race to the area. It would be ideal for a number of reasons. Specifically, it's very safe. There's no cars, there's pedestrians, and you don't really need to shut down any sort of traffic. There's no need for police to prevent cars from getting on the road. I'd be happy to kind of walk you through my proposal, but the long and short of it is I'm hoping to ask for a permit to run this bicycle race once a week from May of 2021 through August of 2021. This is all obviously dependent on how what the COVID rate is in the coming year. And again, I'm more than happy to kind of dive into the details. Let me know how deep you'd like me to go with this.
If I can just say that I started the Alternative Transportation Committee in Riverhead many years ago when we were trying to complete the trail and make a complete route or a loop on the recreation trail in the perimeter or security road that Grumman used to use. And we were successful in getting, I think, $650,000 from the state and another $200,000 from the county in order to complete that route without any of Riverhead taxpayer money. So it was really a great thing. But I would really like you to come to a meeting with the Alternative Transportation Committee, and I can set that up so that you can lay out the plan for the bike race and give us the details And I mean, you can present it today if the town board wants to hear it, but, you know, the Alternative Transportation Committee has seen many applications for people that want to use the recreation trail where it's shut down to the public and essentially it's a race for people that pay to be in the race. So I think that it's important that we remain consistent in proposals that we've heard in the past and maybe set a policy moving forward in the future so that we are fair and consistent with every applicant that would like to see the trail shut down for a couple hours or a few hours, for
Judy,
these type of venues.
I believe the trail's not being used.
I'd be
it's the
happy to do
runways.
that. Do you mind if I clarify?
Please.
I apologize, it might not have been clear.
Okay.
I'm not looking to hold the bicycle race on the trail.
Okay,
I'm actually looking to hold it on the airfield.
okay,
On the runways.
right, so, okay, so we could look into that also, and with the town attorney, because I know that we have had, again, other venues that wanted to use the runways for certain things, and it's been, you know, we need to be consistent, that's all I wanna say. And, you know, the liability for the town with the runways, with the conditions of the runways, and having, you know, several people on the runways. Cause we have leased out the western runway and the eastern runway, so I don't know how that would work with the leases, the current leases that we have.
I understand. I'm very flexible. I'm happy to meet, discuss it more, amend my plan as you see fit. From a perspective, this would be a rather grassroots event.
Yeah.
I would expect no more than, you know, initially the first year, no more than 30 or 40 participants and spectators. A number of junior racers. It would be both men and women's race. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just happy to get the conversation going and
Perfect.
happy to continue it.
Yeah, it sounds great, and we always support recreational activities in Riverhead, so I think it sounds great. We need to look at the details, that's all.
Sounds good.
And work with the town attorney, obviously, to make sure that we wouldn't need a sublease of the runways or something of that nature.
Great.
Understood.
Anyone else on the board?
No?
No, great. So I'm glad the conversation has started,
Yes.
Alexander, and, hopefully I'll be able to join you on one of those races.
Yeah, please reach out to me and we'll set it up with the Alternative Transportation Committee and then we'll include the town attorney.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good rest of the day. Have a great weekend.
Thank
Great.
you, you
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
To amp up my bike riding.
I know.
Uh-oh. The next item up for discussion
The
is
only
town
thing I can do
attorney,
with my ankle.
Concerning update on code enforcement. Before I have, Eric Howard, our code enforcement litigator, and followed by Richie Downs, our investigator, I'd like to make a couple of comments. According to, our administrative Chief Justice Marks, and in part the governor, courts are only 25% operational due to COVID-19 restrictions. Courts may not conduct trials on evictions proceedings commenced after March 17, 2020. Courts may not issue warrants of evictions commencing after March 17, 2020, unless a matter is deemed extremely essential and approved by the administrative judge. No residential warrant of eviction may be executed before October 1st, 2020, or in the event of a future state or federal moratorium on evictions, such later date or dates set forth in law. This believe will be extended until December 31st, 2020. In addition, as per the New York Tenant Safe Harbor Act, the court may not issue a judgment of possession or a warrant of eviction in any pending matter where the respondent suffered a financial hardship due to COVID-19 COVID period. However, we currently have 4 pending, Supreme Court, cases. We will continue to issue summonses on homes that are overcrowded, some which are rentals, including RVs on properties and converted garages. I must note, code enforcement efforts in Riverhead are directed to ensure the safety and welfare of all residents in Riverhead, including flagrant fire hazards. Eric Howard, would you like to come up and just brief us further in this regard? Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Morning,
So-
Eric.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So it sounds like you covered it pretty well with the breakdown. We started from January to March prior to the shutdown for Supreme Court actions on overcrowded and illegal housing. Since we've come back full-time, we've executed a warrant and issued 30 tickets for town code violations in connection with that warrant. We have, prior to the shutdown, we settled for prior transient rental Supreme Court cases. Two of the Supreme Court cases that we started earlier this year on the overcrowded and illegal housing. I've prepared proposed settlement agreements that have been sent out to attorneys representing the defendants, and I would expect that those would settle pretty quickly. And going forward, we have two larger investigations pending. I'm not going to go into significant detail on them at this point because the investigations are still ongoing, but they will be Supreme Court action candidates. In town justice court, so far this year we've had 140 town code dockets, and that's a docket can be any number of tickets, so it could be one ticket, it could be 30 tickets. So that's separate and apart from pursuing the Supreme Court enforcement. Code enforcement officers are out writing tickets. They just lost a couple months as a result of COVID. The good thing is I don't believe we got a substantial number of complaints during that time frame, so we weren't too far behind when we came back. But the code enforcement officers, Nicole Buckner and Ivan Soto, are out there every day, and I know their primary focus is overcrowded housing. When one of those comes in, it gets scheduled for an inspection. I would say an investigation happens on it probably within a week to 2 weeks. And if it's a ticket situation, they issue tickets. If they want to refer it to me for a potential Supreme Court case, then we go that route too, or we go both ways, taking the Justice Court and line them up for Supreme Court.
Eric, I think it's important for the residents to understand that whether a case goes to Supreme Court or not, there are variables involved, and not all cases are destined for Supreme Court, yet we get finalizations out of them, we get restitutions, we get different things. So if people are saying, oh, well, you only did 4 Supreme Court cases, there's a lot of time that goes into those. I know the manpower that code enforcement puts into them and the paperwork that's involved is incredible, but it doesn't mean that nothing else is being done. There's tickets being issued, a lot of things are being handled locally in justice court on the town level, and a lot of times it's more successful to do it that way. So I think the residents just kind of need to understand that a little bit also.
Yeah, there's, I sort of look at it 3 ways. There's, your basic justice court ticket, justice court case, where we think, you're going to issue somewhere between 4 to 5 tickets, and pursuing, remediation and fines that way is going to be effective. Sometimes you have offenders who are repeat offenders, or they're offending with multiple properties. That's going to be something that's more of a Supreme Court candidate and also a larger investigation, and probably something that you would either only take to Supreme, or something where you would take them both to Justice Court and Supreme, and sort of make them fight on 2 fronts, which can be very effective. Now, we do get a lot of overcrowded complaints. We investigate them all, and when Rich comes up, I think he'll give a little bit better detail on the numbers on this. But a lot of times those are unfounded. There is maybe some illegal housing situations, where a basement's occupied and it shouldn't be, or an attic's occupied and it shouldn't be, and they get tickets for that, and they go, 9 times out of 10, they go to the building department and try to legalize the spaces. But sometimes, even if it appears overcrowded, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is overcrowded.
Right, and that's state and county law, and if you could please just elaborate on that as to the number of occupants per bedroom and, you know, sharing a kitchen space, so that the public knows that, you know, the state and the county laws are very specific, that you can have one person per 75 square feet and another 2 people for each additional 50 square feet, I believe it is.
Yeah,
If you could please explain that.
I don't have the exact grid with me right now, but it is a calculation. Rich probably knows the
Yeah.
numbers off the top of his head. But it's 75 square feet for one, and then I believe it's 50 square feet per additional. 70 for a minimum and then 50 per additional person. Okay.
So if you have a room that's 10 by 10, you can essentially have, you know, 2 people in each bedroom. So
Yeah, yeah,
4-bedroom house, you could essentially have 8 people living in the house legally.
that's
Under
correct.
New York State law and under Suffolk County law. So,
Right,
no, I
and-
think some of those laws need to be looked at on the state and the county level.
And the way that you characterize a single-family residence is generally, you know, that we can't tell them that it has to be a traditional family unit, okay? So as long as the occupants of the house have access to all areas of the house, then it has to be characterized as a single-family use, right?
What if there's deadbolts on the outside of the
Deadbolts.
doors?
I'm glad you asked that because that's where I was going.
Okay,
If there's deadbolts on the doors, what I've been doing is saying, well, if you're putting deadbolts on the doors, then the other occupants don't have access to those areas of the
Smart.
house. That changes your use. You're no
Smart.
longer a single-family use, and that's what we've been pursuing in our pending Supreme Court actions.
wonderful.
And also, we have to make note that, I know that you started investigations last year, and I'm sure you're revisiting them now, but some of these cases are old, you're gonna have to start
Yeah.
from scratch. It's not like you can just say, okay, well, see what happened, and let's take this from 2 years ago. You can't start a Supreme Court action on an investigation from 2 years ago, it's not current. You have to start again, so the work is here, it's an ongoing, it's a process. And we have to make sure that, you know, everything is done according to code and the legality of it, and again, and I must stress, this is, you know, to deal with overcrowding, the safety, the welfare, of our residents, and most of these homes, and I'm sure you can attest to it, there's a tremendous flagrant fire hazards. And we don't want these houses to just go up on fire, and we lose 2 or 3 kids, and grandma and grandpa, and the owners of the house.
Yeah.
And some of these houses are from, their landlords, and they'll make closets they'll put a mattress, and they'll make closets out of, bedrooms out of closets, and this is this is our approach, and, it seems that you guys have been working on it, and, you know, we're moving forward, and, I think, you had something to say?
Yeah, I'm glad that the supervisor is working with you and with code enforcement to aggressively pursue these unsafe conditions in these overcrowded houses. I mean, last year we had the fire in the manufactured home park where, a manufactured home, actually, they built a wall in the middle and they were renting it to 2 tenants, and there was a fire in the stove because they were using it for heat. And when there's only one way to get out, because the owner built a wall in the middle of the manufactured home, you know, it really does create a dangerous situation. I think there were 3 or 4 children living in one side of the manufactured home with adults, and they were depending on leaving the stove open for heat, and it actually went on fire. So it's very important for the safety, and I think that there's a lot of exploitation in the town of Riverhead with some landlords that we have, because our market values are lower than other towns around us, so they can pick up these homes pretty inexpensively, and the taxes are inexpensive, but they're charging a fortune for these people to live here. And I really appreciate the job you're doing and you continue to do, and I appreciate the supervisor being as aggressive on this in the name of public safety.
Thank you.
The amount of time and work that goes into each case is certainly not understood by most of the public, especially the keyboard warriors. You know, you read all the time, oh, what's the town doing about this? I ride past the house, I see 8 garbage cans out there. What else do they need? Well, you know what? They need a lot. There's an investigation that has to go in, there's surveillance that has to go on. There's so many things to put a case together that so many people don't realize what goes into this. And I know you guys are out there doing it, and I appreciate the work you're doing, so thank you very much.
And then, and I think you were on vacation when I had brought up the code amendments so that when you sell a house, you're required to get an updated certificate of occupancy. The Village of West Hampton Beach is currently doing that. I have forwarded it to code enforcement so that every time a house is sold, the town code enforcement goes in and does an inspection to make sure that the house is in the same state that it was when the original certificate of occupancy was issued. And then when the deed comes into the assessor's office, if they did not get an updated certificate of occupancy, then code enforcement starts violation actions against them for not obtaining an updated certificate of occupancy prior to the closing. So I think that will help also, and will give an open door to code enforcement to be able to go in if people are not complying with that code amendment. And I did send it over to code enforcement. I included Rich and Jefferson and Catherine to review that. It's just two sentences that you put into the code. So hopefully we'll be able to get that done. I think the board was unanimous on thinking that was a good idea.
It was.
To adopt that. So hopefully that'll get done sooner than later, and that will help you.
Yeah, I think when title changes hands, something like that could be a very effective tool at understanding, exactly what the interior layout of the house is.
And whether or not the basement's finished or anything.
Correct, and I think that would help the assessors as well.
I think, Jody, one way to facilitate this is to have the assessors notify code anytime there's a sale, a
Yeah.
transfer sale, so that way you have it just constantly coming in, this home, this home, this home.
Yeah, that's what they do in West Hampton. The assessors actually go into they would go into their system. We have the IPS system. They would go in and they would see whether or not an updated certificate of occupancy was issued. And if it wasn't, then they forward it to code enforcement.
Well, it might also be a good idea, just sort of from a PR perspective, to let the title companies know, that maybe your biggest, most frequent, at least most of the ones in the town of Riverhead, possibly out farther into Suffolk County, that this is a new local requirement.
Yeah.
Because that's something that they can, let the people know, because they might not always know that when you go to buy or sell a house, that you're gonna have to contact the building department and get an updated CO.
Yep, I think that's a great idea.
Yep.
So, as someone who worked with children for many years, as a teacher, I was aware we were aware, that children came from a difficult situation, or sometimes you were aware from what a child said that everyone was living in one room. But since I've been in office and I've seen pictures, code has, I've seen pictures of homes where children were living. It is very disturbing to me. So I'm glad that you're moving forward. We're moving forward on all of this. I appreciate the work of our code enforcement. And for the protection of children, I would like us to move forward and, just get kids out of these unsafe homes.
We will continue doing that.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome. Rich?
Eric,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Did you have
Richie,
anything?
you're done, correct?
All right, okay.
Okay,
Unless
Good.
anybody else has any questions.
thank you so much. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Eric pretty much touched upon a lot of things. I just want to give you, some statistics on what we're doing. From year-to-date perspective, we have received and are actively working on 411 complaints year-to-date.
411.
Yes. We continue to prioritize the life safety complaints over the general, less serious complaints. I'm gonna try to do this without my glasses fogging up.
You can take, I think you're distant.
Okay.
Because Greg's glasses.
Yeah, because I can't see what I wrote down. We are working diligently with Deputy Town Attorney Eric Howard to alleviate the more serious complaints. We have instituted an overcrowded housing task force to tackle some of our overcrowded situations, bringing forth the Supreme Court actions as Eric has discussed. We continue to welcome any new complaints with regard to overcrowded houses, and we will thoroughly investigate each one. We have completed a new code amendment to our existing housing code, which will go to Code Revision Committee, offering stricter fines and penalties for unsafe and overcrowded housing. And I think we're finished with that. I think it just has to go to the Code Revision, And, we're looking to adopt that, I hope.
Good. That can be
Good.
incorporated into the new legislation for the updated COs also.
Correct. Yeah. And to answer your question, Councilwoman Giglio, a 100-square-foot room can have 4 people
Wow,
pursuant to state law.
that's
So,
a lot.
So a 10 by 10 room
Yes.
can house 4 people legally as per state and county law.
It's 100 square feet, 50 per occupant. I'm sorry, 2, I got that wrong, 2 people.
That's
Sorry.
what I thought.
Yeah, 2 people.
That's 2 sets of bunk beds and nowhere to move in the room.
Yeah, it's a small room. Yeah,
Very
generally
small.
speaking, you have a normal size of rooms in houses are approximately 120 for the smaller rooms. You know, that's a ranch house, you know. But you can have a house that, you know, has 10 to 12 people in it.
Yeah,
Sure.
you can have a
Three-bedroom
4-bedroom
house.
house with
Right.
2 people in each bedroom, that's 8 occupants. As long as they're sharing a space and there are no deadbolts or locks from outside the door where you're prohibiting other people from within the house going into specific areas of the house.
Correct, yeah. So, I mean, we do receive a lot of complaints regarding overcrowded housing, and like I said, we investigate each one. Some of them are unfounded, like I said, because sometimes people will see 7 cars in front of a house, but they really don't know that the occupancy of the house is 12, you know, so.
And these are set up via the state code, correct? These are not
Correct.
town codes, these are state
These are
codes that you have
state-
to
the New York
abide
State
by.
Building Property Maintenance Code.
And if you could elaborate a little bit also on the court case that was reversed in Huntington when it came to the definition of family within a house, if you just could touch briefly on it. I mean, it's very difficult to prove whether or not occupants within a house are considered family.
Yeah, we had to revise our definition back, I think, in 2006, where our definition had stated that you couldn't have more than 5 people in a house that were unrelated. So that was challenged, and now we had to revise our definition.
And we have to go under the family definition that was defined by the court system coming out of that Huntington case.
Correct. Yep. And we continue to do our rental inspections. We're up to 500 or 600 this year for rental inspections, so we continue to do those. It's biannual.
And that was good, and that was one thing that I had initiated back when we raised the rental permit fee in order to pay for the computer software program, so that code enforcement and building and planning could be connected, so that they can have equal access to information instead of phone call.
Correct, yeah. The software's been great for us.
Great. Anyone else? Tim?
Keep plugging away, guys, keep plugging
You're
away.
doing a great job,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich, great job.
Thank you.
Okay, this wraps up our discussion items. In a moment, I'll ask for a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the following matters surrounding the change in status of employees, Rothar. Can I have a motion to enter into, executive session?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you and be safe.